You're listening to Quantum Humanitarian. Thanks for joining us for another conversation that looks beneath the surface of aid, leadership, and global affairs.
This show is different. It isn't Ali Al Mokdad sitting behind the mic. It's us, AI hosts, turning his reflections and lived experiences into conversations.
Conversations that feel like two colleagues thinking out loud, sometimes questioning, sometimes imagining, always searching.
Exactly.
And today we're tackling a theme that, well, many tend to avoid: the politicization of humanitarian aid. It's not always loud, not always visible, but it's reshaping the sector in ways we probably can't afford to ignore.
Because if neutrality and independence are the glass shield of humanitarian action, politicization is, it's the crack that can shatter it.
All right, let's get into it then. Ali Al Mokdad, with all his years across the Middle East, Asia, Africa, he's really seen something unsettling emerge.
Yeah, he has.
He talks about the humanitarian operational system reaching its absolute limits.
Its limits, yeah.
And right at the heart of that, he points to politicization as this silent yet pervasive force.
That's his phrase for it.
So what does he actually mean when he says aid is becoming politicized? It sounds a bit abstract.
It does, but what's compelling about Ali's insight is how he breaks it down.
Yeah.
For him, politicization isn't just some buzzword.
Okay.
It shows up in really, really tangible ways. We're talking about donor governments, attaching all sorts of strings to their funding.
Right, conditions.
Sometimes subtly, sometimes pretty overtly. It's also about this blurring of the lines of neutrality, where humanitarian efforts start looking less like impartial relief and maybe more like an extension of foreign policy goals.
Got it.
And Ali is adamant about this. This isn't just a drift. He sees it as an active undermining of those core humanitarian principles we always talk about: neutrality, impartiality, independence.
And he emphasizes this isn't exactly a new problem, right? But it's reaching a kind of critical point now.
Yes, precisely. By, say, August 2025, with everything unfolding globally, Gaza, Sudan, Ukraine, the pressure on the system just seems to be intensifying.
It's like those cracks you mentioned are getting wider, faster.
Absolutely. It's like the whole system is under this huge magnifying glass, and every little imperfection, every subtle influence is becoming more visible and, frankly, more impactful. The sheer scale of the needs, combined with these escalating political pressures, it just creates an incredibly precarious environment.
So if we take Ali's observation seriously, what actually happens when humanitarian aid, something meant purely to save lives, alleviate suffering, becomes just another tool of statecraft?
Another chess piece on the board, yeah.
What are the immediate sort of gut-wrenching consequences for the people who desperately need that aid?
Well, what Ali continually highlights is why this shift is happening in the first place.
Okay, the root causes.
Often it boils down to donor governments prioritizing their own strategic interests. Things like national security, economic influence, regional stability, maybe putting those above the purely humanitarian needs on the ground.
So aid becomes a form of soft power.
It can, yeah. It's a very effective form. It's this subtle dance, isn't it, between seeming benevolent and pushing strategic advantage.
And we've seen some absolutely stark examples of this lately. Ali points directly to shifts like the U.S. foreign aid policy under the Trump administration in 2025.
Right, that was significant.
Imagine this, January 20th of that year, nearly all humanitarian disbursements were just halted.
Halted, just like that.
The reasoning given was cost-effectiveness measures, apparently tied to something called Project 2025 guidelines.
Project 2025. For those maybe not familiar, it's this comprehensive conservative initiative outlining pretty major policy proposals for a future administration, aims to dramatically reshape the federal government.
Exactly. And regardless of the political intent, the immediate impact on humanitarian work was just staggering, an $813.8 million commitment gap.
Wow. And Ali observed the ripple effects of that firsthand. For instance, U.S. funding used to cover a full 35%. 35% of UN women's health budgets just in Sudan.
That's huge.
And that crucial support just vanished. Critics didn't mince words, did they? They called it a clear realignment of aid with national security goals, effectively obscuring its life-saving purpose.
It's a shocking illustration of how fast policy can just override urgent human needs.
It really is.
And it's not just about funds being pulled back, though. In places like Gaza, aid itself has reportedly been, weaponized.
Weaponized, yeah. That's a strong word, but it feels accurate in some contexts.
We've seen reports of deliberate blockades, excessive screenings, things that effectively choke off essential supplies, to the point where over 100 NGOs, including big names like Oxfam and Doctors Without Borders, actually rejected Israel's registration process in 2025.
Why was that again?
Because it demanded they share their employee lists for so-called Hamas checks.
Ah, right, the neutrality issue.
Exactly. The concern was, and still is, that this compromises their neutrality. It basically forces aid groups into intelligence gathering, blurring those lines in a really dangerous way.
Yeah, that puts them in an impossible position. And online discussions, I remember seeing this on platforms like X, they were just ablaze.
Yeah.
Labeling aid they're a political battlefield.
Right, accusations flying everywhere.
Yeah, against the NGOs themselves even. Alleging complicity or maybe employing individuals tied to militant groups. That's how deep the politicization runs. It impacts delivery, perception, everything.
That's fascinating because Ali also talks about something more systemic, the structure of the aid world itself.
The architecture of aid.
He identifies the dominance of global north-based international NGOs, the INGOs, as another root cause.
Interesting. How so?
He argues it perpetuates these power imbalances. It often sidelines local actors, the ones who really understand their community's needs.
Right, the local expertise.
And it fosters this perception of, foreign influence rather than genuine partnership.
That makes sense. And we saw some concern around the EU's big $1.9 billion aid package in 2025, too, didn't we? Something about horizontal activities.
Yeah, exactly. Horizontal activity sounds pretty harmless, right?
Deceptively so, maybe.
But Ali suggests it's a subtle way of tying funds to specific policy initiatives or broader donor priorities, rather than letting aid be purely needs-driven by the recipients.
So it's like saying, we'll help, but only if you align with our bigger picture goals, even if those aren't the immediate humanitarian needs.
Precisely, even if those objectives aren't directly related.
And the human cost of all this. It's just devastating. Ali observes this growing danger for aid workers themselves.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
In places like Sudan, Ukraine, armed groups are now actively targeting humanitarian staff.
Which not only puts their lives at risk, but it severely worsens access to people who desperately need help.
Absolutely. And it's particularly alarming when you think, what was the projection? 305 million people needing aid this year.
Yeah, a doubling in just 5 years. It's staggering. The battlefield isn't just for soldiers anymore. It's increasingly dangerous for those just trying to save lives.
So with all this happening, what does it actually mean for that bedrock principle? Neutrality. Ali has this incredibly powerful analogy. He calls neutrality a glass shield.
A glass shield. I like that.
Yeah. Something incredibly vital, obviously, but also incredibly fragile. It can crack under even the slightest pressure.
Right.
And he emphasizes that even the perception of bias, it doesn't even have to be real, just the perception can shatter the trust that's so essential for these organizations to operate.
That glass shield image really sticks with you, and we've seen how quickly that trust can just break, haven't we? Think about that deadly chaos back in March 2025 in Gaza. Dozens of people died trying to get World Food Program aid.
Terrible scenes.
And it immediately sparked accusations of favoritism. It even led to calls for investigations into whether starvation itself was being used as a weapon of war.
The moment aid gets tangled up in the conflict, even implicitly, it just opens the door to those kinds of devastating accusations.
Yeah. And it's not just accusations floating around. Look at the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, the GHF.
Right, the one backed by the U.S. and Israel, with $60 million.
That's the one.
Yeah.
It faced multiple resignations. Why? Because it simply couldn't stick to its stated principles amid all these claims of politicization.
So even well-intentioned initiatives can get completely derailed if that perception of neutrality is compromised. You can throw money at a problem, but if the trust isn't there,
It often just crumbles, yeah.
it feels like a relentless trend. Harvard's humanitarian initiative back in 2025 actually predicted we'd see more of this politically contingent funding and a shrinking of operational space, especially in authoritarian regimes.
Which means aid organizations are constantly trying to walk this impossible tightrope, right? Navigating a minefield of political agendas while just trying to get help to people. How do you even begin to manage that?
It's incredibly challenging, and Ali points out it's not always malicious intent from the outside.
Okay.
Sometimes it's just the logistical realities on the ground, or even subtle actions that unintentionally create these perceptions of favoritism.
Like what?
Imagine trying to deliver aid in a besieged area. Just the route you take or the specific checkpoints you manage to pass through. that alone can be interpreted as aligning with one side or another.
Wow, yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way.
It creates an almost impossible balancing act for organizations trying to stay neutral while delivering urgent aid. It's like being constantly asked to pick a side when your only side is supposed to be humanity itself.
So what Ali really underscores here is that this erosion of trust isn't just some minor hurdle. It makes access, as he puts it, an uphill battle.
An uphill battle, exactly.
It's not just about one specific convoy getting stuck somewhere. It damages the entire sector's credibility. It's this incredibly difficult cycle to break.
Yeah, it impacts everything. Fundraising, negotiations, simply getting boots on the ground safely.
This politicization isn't just theoretical, then. Ali shows how it translates into very tangible and frankly heartbreaking barriers right there on the ground.
Yeah, we're talking suffocating bureaucratic red tape.
Yep.
Outright access restrictions, logistical hurdles that just grind everything to a halt. Ali expresses just immense frustration about this. He's observed lives lost specifically because of these delays. Delays often caused by governments imposing regulations or deliberately blocking aid to opposition-held areas.
Every hour matters in these crises.
It does, and these delays are just unacceptable. It's like watching a life raft slowly deflate while people are drowning right in front of you.
That's a powerful image. And tragically accurate. Take Gaza again. Israel's siege and the screening processes have directly blocked aid entry,
leading NGOs worldwide to demand an end to it.
Exactly. Calling for an end to the politicization. It's not just frustration. It's literally life and death. And looking at the bigger picture, Ali notes the 2025 UN budget for Yemen, set at $4 billion, is facing huge gaps.
And that's not just about Yemen, is it?
No, he sees it as symptomatic of this broader donor fatigue and a shifting focus across maybe the top 10 crises, including Sudan and Syria. It's almost as if the world is picking and choosing where aid is allowed to go.
Picking which crises get to stay in the spotlight.
And then you have these external shocks layered on top, like the shutdown of USAID back in May 2025.
Right. Oxfam reported the strained humanitarian responses globally. It just shows how fragile the whole system is when it's tied to political or budgetary whims. It's a constant tightrope walk.
What's truly devastating, though, as Ali points out, is the impact on credibility. This politicization creates this deep, deep trust deficit.
Not just with the communities they're trying to serve.
No, almost ironically, also with the very donors funding the operations. He describes it as a cycle impossible to break. How does that cycle work?
Well, accusations of bias can lead to funding cuts. Those cuts lead to more restrictions on the ground, which then makes fundraising harder, gaining access harder, delivering impact harder.
Vicious circle.
Exactly. We've even seen governments, like in Syria, outright rejecting aid they perceive as politicized, despite the urgent needs of their own people, because they don't want it coming with external agendas attached.
It's just a lose-lose scenario for those caught in the middle.
Absolutely. But, after laying out all these profound challenges, Ali Al Mokdad isn't someone who just identifies problems and leaves it there.
No, he definitely isn't.
His reflections, especially looking towards 2025 and beyond, they offer some really clear pathways forward. He sees opportunities for reform, even in this incredibly complex landscape.
That's what's so powerful about his perspective, I think. It's not just critique. There's vision there, too. Ali outlines 4 key solutions that really seem to resonate. First, he emphasizes the need for bolder, clearer advocacy for neutrality.
Being louder about it.
Yeah. Actively pushing for depoliticized aid at big global forums like the UN, and having NGOs like the IRC, for example, demanding investigations whenever those principles are violated.
It's about standing firm on what humanitarian aid is, and just as importantly, what it is not.
Exactly. And then he talks about diversifying funding, which makes total sense.
Crucial for reducing that reliance on politically motivated donors.
Right. Ali suggests exploring everything from private sector partnerships to grassroots funding models.
Drawing on insights from organizations maybe like Wealth Hunger Health, who found success building more independent funding streams.
It's about loosening those political strings, basically. One donor at a time to protect that independence.
Okay, and the next one feels really transformative, empowering local partners.
Yes, localization.
Ali believes this isn't just a nice to have, he sees it as a fundamental necessity.
Why so fundamental?
Because shifting power to local organizations doesn't just build deeper trust within communities, which is huge in itself, it also fundamentally changes the narrative. It ensures aid is truly driven by community priorities, not external controls or agendas. It's moving away from that old, almost colonial aid model.
Towards genuine partnership, where those closest to the crisis actually lead the response.
Exactly. And finally, Ali stresses transparency as a core value.
Just being open about it all.
Yeah. Being crystal clear about how and why decisions are made. Where does the money come from? How is it spent? How are beneficiaries selected?
Okay.
He argues that's one of the most effective ways to rebuild credibility. It's not just good practice, it's like a strategic imperative to combat suspicion and rebuild faith. We're seeing pushes for this, like stricter EU aid transparency rules.
So Ali's call to action here, it isn't just about fixing logistics or budgets, is it?
Not at all. He sees this as a moral problem, a challenge to the very essence, the soul of humanitarian principles.
But he's not without hope.
No, definitely not. He points to so many NGOs that are refusing to compromise their values, finding really innovative ways to adapt.
And crucially,
He sees local organizations rising to the challenge, demanding their rightful place at the table, taking ownership of their own community's relief and development.
he truly believes that neutrality, independence, and impartiality aren't just, academic concepts in a textbook.
No. They are, as he puts it so powerfully, lifelines worth fighting for.
Lifeline's worth fighting for. That's strong.
Mm-hmm. And as we think about these paths forward, maybe these solutions, I want to leave you, our listener, with a thought exercise from Ali.
Okay.
Close your eyes for just a moment. Imagine a humanitarian system that was truly, completely independent of political agendas. What would that look like? Who would be in charge of setting the priorities then? And maybe most importantly, how different would the outcomes actually be for people living through crises?
That's a powerful vision to hold on to.
It is. And perhaps it's the ultimate goal we should all be striving for.
A lot to think about there.
This has been Quantum Humanitarian, where we take Ali Al Mokdad's reflections and turn them into conversations that matter.
If the politicization of aid feels uncomfortable listening to this, well, that's kind of the point it should. It forces us to ask who really controls humanitarian action deep down. Are we serving communities, or are we serving agendas?
The answers certainly won't come in just one conversation like this. But questioning the system, asking these hard questions, that's definitely a start.
So until next time, keep imagining, keep questioning, and keep holding on to the principles that make humanitarianism what it's truly meant to be.